Hello and welcome back to 1874. It's time for another show where Dave and I are going to have a little look at Villa from a tactical perspective after they played three at the back at the weekend. Is this something we're going to see more of? Dave and I are going to discuss, and is it actually a really good solution to a few issues within the makeup of Villa's squad? This show is sponsored by Match Bingo, and if you head to 1874.io/matchbingo, you'll be able to download the app. If you do, that's really helpful to us. And I have noticed recently as well, it's not just football, it's cricket as well. I got a notification today. So the app works for all kinds of sports. You put £2 on, you get yourself a bingo card, and you get the chance to win between £25 and £250, depending on what happens in the sport that you've chosen to watch and get involved in. So do download the app if you can, using our link. That's really, really helpful to the channel. Now, people who are listening and watching almost won't recognise the guy that I'm on with, Dave Reed. When we did our last match preview of the season, little did I know that he was just going to disappear for 2 months. But disappear he did. I did see him in person last week, but I've managed to get him back on. So all the people I do this show with basically just decided to take a break without telling me. Jacob's only recently come back. Greg's been on a break, and now you're back from a break as well, Dave.
I am back from a break. I've had holidays. I've just, I've been busy. I'm now on paternity. Do you know what I mean? It's been a busy time post end of the last season.
Yeah, and how is young Tedder?
He's doing well. He took his first steps last week.
Ooh.
So it's a landmark moment, but also a very concerning moment, as now everything is up for grabs in every single room, and he could easily fall over at any given moment. So great time, but a worrying time.
Kicking a ball around now he can walk?
No, he's more throwing. He's a thrower than a kicker.
He's a thrower, maybe a goalkeeper.
Yeah. Possibly.
Maybe Villa's future goalkeeper. Who knows? But yeah, do let us know when he starts kicking the ball, whether he's right-footed or left-footed, Dave. I'm always keen to know information like that. Right, then let's get into the show. Now, this is something a little bit different today. God knows if it's gonna work. I've had to get myself on the setup, and if this works, I'll be absolutely amazed. Dave's had a sneak peek of this, the screen that's going to be coming up on your show very, very shortly. It's probably worth saying again, I've said this a few times recently, if you are listening via audio, I'll try and make it as hospitable to audio as possible, but it might be better if you watch on YouTube. So if you're commuting, still listen. I'd love to get the listenership anyway, but watch it on YouTube when you get home as well, because I think the visuals will really aid this piece. So Dave, Villa played three at the back on a Saturday against Hansa Rostock. Actually were winning the game when they played three at the back, and when they deviated away from it, they ended up losing 3-1 after they made all the subs. But it's got Villa fans kind of talking a little bit, and it's got me thinking, and it had you thinking as well. Is this going to be something that we perhaps see next season? Now, we did kind of delve into three at the back a couple of times last year from memory. I remember Forest away was three at the back. I remember Leipzig away was three at the back as well. So it's obviously something that Emery has considered. And then we didn't really see it in the second half of the season when he kind of got the squad shape in the way he wanted when Rashford and Asensio came in. We know it's a pretty frugal summer so far. We know it's going to be a reactive summer as well. I'm not expecting too much business over the next few weeks or before the season starts. I think most of Villa's business will come late or depend on sales. Actually, this makeup of the squad at the moment, Dave, three at the back feels a pretty viable formation for us.
Look, I don't know the particular reason anyway, why he decided to play three at the back against Hansa Rostock in pre-season, but it is something, as you say, that he's done before. We can talk a little bit in a bit more depth about Leipzig and Forest a little bit later on. But I think one thing that he does prize, Unai Emery, is versatility, and that's versatility within player profiles, and that's versatility in tactical setup. And I think that is the way the game is going as well. You have to have various different solutions for different opposition, different types of games. You've touched on two games there where it did go well, but I think Palace away, where Villa started in a three at the back shape, didn't go so well. I think Villa lost that game 4-1, and it could have been 5-6-7 in that game. So there's been times where it's worked. There's been times where it hasn't worked. I think he tried it as well in pre-season 2023 before Tyrone Mings got that season-long ending injury in the United States. He started with three at the back in that, which was Torres, Konsa, and Mings in that way. So it's something that he's had in the back of his mind, and it was something that he was asked about midway through last season as well, when Mings was kind of coming back into fitness and into the team again. It was something that he was asked about, and he said, look, I think they are capable of playing together, and there's different ways that Villa could set up in the forward positions. But I think it's a really good option. It's a really good option for Unai Emery. And I think also you have to think about how Villa have evolved since Emery became head coach. Villa have evolved tactically every single season. So is this going to be the iteration this time around?
Yeah, no, it's not alien to the players because obviously, although Villa have played four at the back, the left back's so high that Villa quite often make a three in some dimension, whether it be Kamara dropping back and making a back three, or sometimes obviously Konsa or Dizazi has played as a right back, or Bogard, and they've tucked in to make a back three on the ball. It would be interesting to see Villa kind of have their off the ball system as a back three, because that isn't something that we've seen. That's not how it's worked. I think as well, the fact that he has used it, I know it's early in pre-season, personnel aren't necessarily all here at the moment, but I do think it's a nod that it makes it something that he absolutely might be considering at the moment. I think the other key thing is that Jacob kind of touched on this a few weeks ago when he came back on. He said Villa have kind of played the same way almost for Emery's entire tenure now, and teams find you out after a certain time. If you're playing the same way week in, week out, and I know Villa always makes subtle changes to what they do, but the base system has been the same throughout Emery's tenure, really. Teams get wise to what you're doing. They come up with ideas to stop you and kind of stop your really effective players as well. So I think Villa, having used or played in the same way for kind of 2 and a bit years now, it's time for the next kind of evolution. And I do wonder whether three at the back from the start is that next evolution, Dave. Now, I'm just going to pull up the screen here. So those of you watching on YouTube will be able to see it. Those of you listening won't. So I've just put out at the moment what I think Villa's kind of ideal team would be with three at the back. So obviously it's Emery in goal at the moment, Konsa right centre-back, Mings centre-back, and Pau Torres left centre-back. Luca Dean and Cash are the wing-backs on my screen, Tielemans and Kamara at the base of midfield, and then Rodgers and McGinn kind of both playing as narrow 10s off Ollie Watkins, and I've got a few other players that might come into the fray here as we go on talking about it on the sideline. So Dave, first thoughts when you kind of look at that system and how it might work?
Okay, well, if we start with the centre-backs, and I'm just going to talk a little bit more about in possession stuff really for the moment. Obviously, Pau Torres, one of the best defenders in Europe on the ball, and him playing on the outside of that back three allows him to be heavily involved in build-up, take the ball and progress it up the field. He's also able to play a little bit higher as well. So when Villa are required to pen opposition in against low blocks, he can really be stood almost on the halfway line and playing those incisive passes that we know he's absolutely capable of doing. The only downside that you get with Pau Torres probably is out of possession. Now, the issue that he's had is a physicality one, essentially. Do you want him defending wide areas? Do you want him defending big spaces, which is what an outside centre-back has to do? That's probably one of his weak areas: physicality, defending wide spaces, and pace running back towards his own goal. So that's the only downside I would see with Pau Torres. But that would mean that the left wing back has a really big job on his hands to kind of tuck in and support him defensively. Ezri Konsa, we've seen him play on the other outside centre-back as a right-sided centre-back, but also as a right back. So that experience there will enable him to play on the outside of the three on the right-hand side. And what it also enables Villa to do is actually defend still in that 4-4-2, which is what they've predominantly done throughout the whole of Unai Emery's tenure. So Konsa would flip to right back, and then Mings and Pau Torres would be the central defenders, and Digne would be the left back out of possession. The other trend that we're almost seeing in the Premier League, I feel like is coming back a little bit, is flying fullbacks. Now, We've seen Liverpool sign Jeremy Frimpong, Milos Kerkez. We've seen Manchester City sign Reinae Nori. They're playing at midfield or at right back sometimes in Matheus Nunes. But I think we're going to see a trend perhaps of football going back the other way, of seeing fullbacks being a real attacking force. Now, sometimes fullbacks were, over the last 4 or 5 years, they were either inverting or doing what Matty Cash has done for Villa often, which is playing a situational back three, and where Villa were building up in a three, Matty Cash would form that right-sided centre-back. As you say as well, Villa have the option of Kamara doing that as well. But maybe that is something that Unai Emery has also spotted around Europe. We know he watches lots of different coaches around the world and around Europe as to how they're setting up. Is he seeing that trend of flying fullbacks and thinking, okay, maybe I don't have the fullbacks that are able to get up and down and have that responsibility defensively. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an attacking player out of that system and put them in as a centre-back. Now, obviously, you lose something attacking, but if he feels that Villa are able to get the best out of their fullbacks in an attacking sense, then maybe that's a sacrifice that he's willing to make. The other thing that we see then is the 2-10s. Now, Villa have predominantly played with 2-10s. When Unai Emery came in, it was often that kind of 3-box-3 in possession, where you would have two defensive midfielders, 2-10s and Watkins. And then we saw, certainly from the second half of last season, it was definitely more of a 4-2-3-1, with Marco Asensio being behind the front man, with Morgan Rogers playing on the right-hand side. But it is something that he's liked. And the other option that you have there is what Villa did against Paris Saint-Germain, and play pretty much 3 number 10s. So that was Tielemans getting around the pivot in that case, which was Vitinha. I'm talking about the home game against PSG.
Yeah.
And then you had Rogers and McGinn either side of that number 10. So you almost had 3 number 10s, which were outnumbering PSG in transition, and that really hurt them. And that was a way that Villa were able to get at one of the best teams in Europe. So that is an option where you have Onana in instead of Tielemans, and Tielemans playing as one of the 10 players, with Rogers and McGinn as well. So there's options there, I think, going forward. What might happen in that case then is to make the number. You would basically have Onana as a third 10. That's what I'm suggesting, where you have Kamara at the base and Onana as a third 10, or have the license anyway to get forward from that second defensive midfield. So there's lots of different options there.
Yeah, I see what you mean with the third 10, because that's what I was saying. I think this system is absolutely perfect, because if you look at it, like, different situations are going to arise through a game. So at some point when Luka Dean's forward, you maybe get caught, everyone can shuffle. Pau Torres, then you've raised question marks over it, which is the right thing to do, I think. But that works at that point as a back four. Then it worked vice versa as well. If Matty Cash is up there, Conte's adept at playing right back. It's not ideal, Mings being at the right hand side there, I think, but it kind of still works. I just think there's a lot of flexibility with this system, Dave, because Pau Torres is the key one for me here. It's getting him and Mings in the team, which I think is massive, because you're then getting your best defender in the team, but also your defender in the team that's the best on the ball. So you mentioned about kind of Onana becoming the third 10 earlier. My thinking was that, when you're attacking in a game, Tielemans almost comes here. Rogers can then shuffle out a little bit to the left, McGinn at the right. But Pau Torres is almost then becoming a number 6 and playing in alongside Kamara, and you've got his range of passing then in kind of that position. He's going to be very difficult to pick up there, I think, for team to know what to do with someone like Pau Torres, with his distribution playing there. You've then got your wing backs absolutely flying forward, and suddenly you look at that there, you're kind of difficult to play through if you lose the ball, because you've got the 2 centre-backs and then the 2 defensive players in Pau and Kamara in this on-the-ball situation in transition. That's difficult to break down. But look at the options you've got when you're on the ball and you're coming forward. You've got the passing of Tielemans in central dangerous areas with Rogers and McGinn making runs. You can either, depending on opposition, you can swap McGinn and Rogers round, and they play there like that if you're watching on the screen. So I just think the flexibility and the fact that we haven't really got that right side sorted in terms of an ideal winger coming in. We know Villa might want to sign a winger, but we're not sure whether it's going to happen at the moment. I know you had some thoughts about that, didn't you? But this kind of solves that problem, if that makes sense, if we don't sign a new winger.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of reasons, isn't there, that why positions have been an issue and are an issue. I think, Leon Bailey's future is uncertain, and Daniel Marlin is the only other kind of natural wide player, I think. Really, Ramsey and Rogers have been played out wide, but are they naturally wide players? You would say no. They're more adept at maybe starting wide and then coming in field. So I think, if you're thinking back to basics as well, really, wingers and attacking players are probably more expensive than defenders as a basic principle. So while you're getting quoted 50-60 million pounds for a winger that is ultimately going to enhance Villa's first 11, and that is what Villa really want. You want a winger or a first or a signing to really enhance that first 11. A centre-back or a right-sided centre-back, which is maybe what Villa would go for, maybe you could get a player that would enhance the Villa starting 11 for 30 million pounds. That's as a basic guide. I think the interesting thing about what you say around Pau there, moving him into that position as to where your kind of Tielemans marker is at the moment, is I think it's important the body shape that Pau Torres has when he receives the ball. What you wouldn't want Pau Torres to be doing is to be receiving the ball off Mings or off Konsa facing his own goal, like a Kamara does, where
Yeah,
he's under
fair.
pressure, where he's got people piling in behind him on the press. What you want Pau Torres to receive the ball is with space in front of him and facing the opposition goal, so he can pick his passes and he can drive and dribble up to the halfway line or even into the opposition half. So I think that's an important note there as to how Pau Torres receives the ball in those positions.
You've got obviously the bench players here as well, but you can quite easily swap people out. So Maatsen in for Luca Dean here. Maatsen can be that flying left wing back. We've also seen him invert in certain games and come into that area, which depending on who else is playing could be an option. I think what this does as well, I think it protects Garcia. When he's playing, it gives him that freedom to come forward without having to worry so much about getting back, because you've got the three centre backs obviously behind him and the two number sixes as well. So I think it kind of gets the shackles off him. You could quite easily move Ramsey in for McGinn here. I think Rodgers and Watkins pretty much are always going to play with the current setup that we've got. You mentioned earlier about Onana maybe comes in and Tielemans comes as a 10, or you could even play three central midfielders. The other option that I think this gives us, if I just move Ramsey back out and put Marlon in, you can almost do this, Dave. This is how Villa used to play under Brian Little and John Gregory, where you do almost play two up front and Marlon and Watkins can both pull either side where they need to. Watkins drifting to the left, Marlon drifting to right, creating that space for Rodgers to then crash the box and come in and be that central player, knowing you've got the players behind you. I think the base of having a three at the back gives Villa just so much flexibility and so much freedom. And whereas at the moment, because the squad's not complete, we don't know what the makeup of the side's going to be like going into the season. Where I feel we're a little bit short at the moment, because we've obviously lost Asensio, we've lost Rashford, and we've lost Disasi from last season's squad. I feel like this kind of masks our shortcomings squad-wise a little bit more. We've got Bogard as well, who can quite easily come into anywhere in that back three as well. We do think Villa will sign a new centre-back, but Bogard signed a new contract. Playing three at the back probably gets him more minutes as well, which is what he'll want. I just think if I look at that and I look at the makeup of it, it just gives us a lot more, and I think it covers things as well, Dave.
I think that's a really fair point to make as well. And you've also got to think about the Europa League. And Unai Emery will once again say at the start of this season and throughout this Premier League season that the Premier League is the most important. So that will be for him more important than the Europa League, which means some of the players that are at the moment on your bench players, they will be coming in and getting significant minutes this season in the Europa League. You expect maybe Barkley to play 80% of the Europa League games. You would expect Bogard to play at least 50, 60% of Europa League games, maybe the new centre-back as well, while they're acclimatising. So you've got to think that where Villa last season, they were looking for depth because they knew they needed to rotate and play their strongest 11 Champions League and Premier League. They were going to have to play a lot of games. I think this coming season, it might be more about one or two, maybe one or two players to really enhance the starting 11. And then the rest of that squad are going to be lent on heavily for Europa League football.
Yeah, I think it's about working smarter maybe this season. So if I just set it back up and put Cash and Luca Dean back in, for example here, I think and take Marlon out and I'll put McGinn back in. I think you say you're playing Newcastle here on the first day of the season. I think you'd probably be looking at something like this. I'll put Bizot in goal because he'll obviously be he'll be the one playing the first game of the season by the looks of things if Emery ends up staying, because he'll be suspended. So you look at the makeup of that, and I think that's probably a fair assumption. If we were to go with three at the back, it would be something like that against Newcastle, wouldn't it? But then I think, as I say, you're playing in the Europa League, you drop Mings out here, you can shuffle Konsa across. He plays pretty much every game, doesn't he? Konsa, he's very, very durable. Luca Dean comes out, Maatsen comes in. I think Garcia will play a lot of Europa football. I've said that previously. Barkley and Onana maybe come in for the European game here, and you've got them in there. Rodgers pretty much always plays. McGinn comes out. Ramsey comes in. I do think we'll sign a new attacker, or that could be Marlon there. Like, you can see the kind of management of two kind of campaigns there, with the league campaign and the Europa campaign, can't you?
Yeah, definitely. And I think you made an interesting point when you talk about Villa's first game against Newcastle. Eddie Howe obviously experimented with a a three at the back or a
And it
situational
worked.
three at the back towards the back end of the season, and a lot of the times that worked as well. So maybe Emery's looked at the way they've set up. Maybe he's thinking about how Villa might set up on the opening game of the season. And the game, obviously we've kind of built this around what happened against Hansa Rostock, and there's still a lot of players to return, but maybe that was a kind of a practice game for the centre backs to say, look, this might be how we set up on the opening day against Newcastle. So we need to get this right. There's been times where Villa have got it right and times where Villa have got it wrong. And in particular, when you say the words Crystal Palace, it sends shivers down the spine. But when we've played against three at the backs as well, Villa have really struggled. So, and you also think about Manchester United on the last day of the season. So Villa need to find a way to play against three at the backs. But also the versatility this gives you is that you're matching them up.
It's definitely something that's been worth talking about, Dave, and something that's worth looking into. And in conclusion, I do think it's something that could really, really work. I've always been a fan of three at the back, and I've liked the way Villa have played because what they do does incorporate a three at the back on the ball most of the time. But to me, I think that's a winning system potentially for us in the summer, where we might not do loads and we might be just looking for solutions from within sometimes and making the best of what we've already got at our disposal.
Just to talk about when Villa have done it successfully, you think about Leipzig away in the Champions League, where Matty Cash essentially on paper was a replacement for Leon Bailey in that starting 11, but that was pretty much a three at the back and a 3-5-2, and both Cash and Luca Digne that night were up in the front line in that in possession 3-2-5, and they tried it again a few days later against Nottingham Forest. I think Tyrone Mings, from what Jacob said anyway, I remember him saying at the time that Mings was going to play that game, but he got ill, I think, in the warm-up for that game, and it ended up being Diego Carlos in the centre of that three. The other option, of course, is maybe Pau Torres in the centre of the three now.
Oh, am I going back on the tactical board, Dave?
I mean, what that does,
back on?
what it negates is that you haven't got Pau Torres in wide areas, but what you do need from your central three, your centre of the three defenders, you need someone who can win aerial duels. So, is that going to be Pau Torres, or is that best place to be Tyrone Mings? I'd rather have Tyrone Mings defending wide areas, defending big spaces, than Pau Torres. But with one hand you give, with the other hand you take. It's trade-offs all over the pitch, isn't it? What do Villa think is going to be best? And the other thing you have to consider is also, the formation that you kind of pick them in there is when Villa almost have that kind of settled possession. But how do Villa negotiate goal kicks? That's the other thing, because, Villa have tended to build from goal kicks in a kind of either 4-2-4 or definitely a 4 in the back line. So that would be your split centre backs and your full backs going wide and a little bit higher. It's a case of, if Mings is the right centre back from deep build up from goal kicks, he's going to be pressed really, really well, and he's going to be forced onto that right foot to play passes. So how is he going to cope in those deep phases on his right foot? When Villa have got comfortable possession, great. They're going to move into that three. They're going to be able to move the ball between the thirds. It's getting into that settled possession, beating that initial press from the opposition, and getting into that shape that Villa know they're able to do damage in. I remember when Villa had Clement Longley, they tried it.
Yeah.
Fulham away, I remember. Maybe on a couple of games it was. And
We had to be forced into. This is the thing. I think previously we kind of forced into things and trying to make things work. Whereas this, I see as being viable from within with what we've got right now. I think that's the interesting thing about it, though.
And that's
you're right to pick out goal kicks. I think that is a good thing to pick out. If you look here, you're almost utilising Mings as a spare man, because I don't think you'd want him getting the ball there where he's in the pitch at the moment. But does Kamara come there and suddenly he's an option, and then you've got the fullbacks pretty available, and Arna's a kind of a spare man in there as well, and you've still got your front players, your front four as well being involved. That looks kind of neatish, I would say.
Yeah, I mean the other option is that actually Mings takes the goal kicks and gives it to Martinez or Bezo, and they take the ball a little bit further forward, and Konsa splits and goes almost to the right back position. Pau and Pau's the left centre back, and Maatsen drops deeper, and it is kind of a kind of 4 or 5 build up. But I think goal kicks is something that they'll have to overcome.
They'd work on it, wouldn't they? Non-stop to make sure they get there. I've got to say, I quite like this team here that stumbled upon. So
I
we've
mean, it's
got
a good team,
the
isn't it? It's
goalkeeper,
a
the
lovely
back three
team.
is the same, but you've got Onana next to Kamara instead, and then Tielemans, Ramsey, and Rodgers off
Yeah.
Watkins. Quite like the look of that too. Again, that kind of it's hard in the current system to get Tielemans, Onana, and Kamara into the team. And Onana's a £50 million player, and I think we all agree that Kamara and Tielemans is our best pivot. So again, that system makes that work more effectively to me, whilst not sacrificing your attacking verve, because you've still got the two number 10s playing off. Well, you've got three number 10s in this instance playing
Yeah.
off Ollie Watkins.
And that that's kind of what I was thinking. If you're trying to outnumber a midfield, Newcastle will go man for man in there. If
Yeah.
they play 4-3-3, they'll go man for man, and the three central midfielders. So that is a way. What you've done there is to outnumbering them in the middle of the pitch. But Tielemans is someone that he's utilised as a 10 before. He's almost started him as when Villa played, when Moussa Diaby was in the team. Villa played with that shadow striker, the second striker, and Tielemans started in that position on a number of occasions where he'd start in the front line, drop deep, and then play as number 10. Emery likes him there. He's played there before, and I think in certain games he wants Tielemans on the ball higher up the pitch. So I think that's definitely another option. And then it gets Onana, who I'm expecting a big season from. This is a big time for him to really establish himself at a high level. And I think it's a way of getting Onana, Kamara, and Tielemans into the team.
Yeah, well, I think that's been a worthwhile and interesting conversation, Dave. Hopefully, people who've watched and listened, more so watched, have found that interesting way of considering things. And obviously, we've tried something different with having the graphics up on the screen and having the tactics board. Eat your heart out, Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher. I think we've given them a big run for their money there, Dave, haven't we?
I don't think so.
They'll be quaking in there. They'll be quaking in their boots first Monday night football with us looking over their shoulder. They'll be looking over their shoulders at me and you coming down the motorway. They're going to be seriously worried about that. But no, seriously, I did actually really enjoy doing that, Dave. So thank you very much. And maybe something we can incorporate into our match preview shows for the new season with the tactics board, if people have liked it. I mean, people might go into the comments and say, what a load of rubbish that was, in which case we won't ever do it again. But I enjoyed it, which is always the main thing.
No, well, look, that is the main thing. And why not? If we get a good response, why wouldn't we use it again for the previews, eh?
Maybe Dave Reed can take control of the tactics board at some point as well. Geez, see what happens there. Right then, thank you ever so much for Dave Reed for returning to the channel, a triumphant return, hopefully on 1874 for Dave Reed. And hopefully, as I say, everyone's enjoyed that. I enjoyed it. It was worthwhile discussion in my mind. If you have watched this and you have enjoyed it, then make sure you're giving the video a like on YouTube, leave us a comment as well, and make sure you subscribe with your post notifications on. If you're watching this and you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Press that button immediately and let's get those subscriber numbers up. If you have listened via Spotify or Apple, hopefully you've managed to take something away from that, but I would advise you to go back and watch on YouTube because it makes a lot more sense what we've just done on YouTube. But either way, leave us a 5-star review, leave us a nice review, and leave us a nice comment as well on the episode. Be plenty more content coming up through the week, so keep your eye on our socials and you'll know exactly when the content is coming out. Dave, you around this week? Maybe have you on again at some point?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
we can squeeze it in, can't we?
Definitely a promise that he's just done there. So Dave, you'll see Dave again this week as well, so do watch out for that. Have a great rest of your day, and as always, up the Villa.